Robert Allen, sideline analyst, talk show host, Oklahoma State, Stillwater, and joins us on 365 Sports. It's been a while. Robert, we just tried to leave you alone last season. We just didn't think you'd want to talk much about it. It was, well, hey, Baylor's had a few of those along the way too. Everybody has. So how would you describe the mood? The schedule's out. We saw a couple of quotes from Gundy, which I enjoy him. I know you cover him on an everyday basis, basically. But how would you describe where the mood is of the Oklahoma State football fan base right now?
Oh, I think the fan base is curious. Mike made some comments in November that, he was frustrated. And they weren't taken well by the public. And the funny thing is, he never said Oklahoma State fans. He just was basically talking about people who complain. And I guess because there was a lot of complaining in the fan base, everybody not everybody, but a lot of people thought the head coach was talking about them. So, we had, not only were we losing in football, in Stillwater, but it became a little bit of a Peyton Place situation as well, which, you know what, when you lose, you're subject to all kinds of emotions, all kinds of attitudes, and we saw a lot of them last fall.
He has never, obviously, you're going to clash with the administration at times over a long career like he's had. But very publicly in the offseason, they had a 4-day little dust-up over a weekend about his contract in the future and all of these things. Would you say there's more tension between them now than there's ever been, or do you find that successfully worked out?
You know what, guys? Now, we live in the same state with the University of Oklahoma and the Sooners. And not as a sideline reporter, not as a member of the media, but as an alum of the school, as a father that had 2 kids attend, one played football. I was always a little envious of what Oklahoma had. And the president passed away today, David Boren.
Yep.
But they were so in line down in Norman with the president and David Boren, with the athletic director and Joe Castiglione, and for all those years with Bob Stoops as the head coach. And in Stillwater, you had Boone Pickens, who, thank God, came around and cared and put his money where his mouth was. You had the athletic director that really brought him on board in Mike Holder. And then you had the head coach in Mike Gundy. And you had a president as well. They were never in line. It was amazing how much got accomplished, even though it was a little bit fragmented. It was a little bit like that family that has all the stories, except this family was winning a lot of football games. They had just in the last couple of years, with Dr. Schrum as president, Chad Weiberg as athletic director, and with Mike Gundy, Oklahoma State had that alignment. They really did. The president backed Mike, the AD backed Mike, Mike backed the president and the AD. It was really kind of good. And now what you've got is, and I don't know why, I can't tell you, but the Board of Regents has been, because I think they really caused that weekend. I was at the meeting. They went into executive session, and I know they called President Schrum and Chad Weiberg into the meeting. And when they walked out, and you can read the stories I wrote on it, I had never seen the look on those two individuals' faces like I saw when they came out of that executive session. And then, of course, later in the day, we find out that they're in the same room in the athletic, actually in Chad Weiberg's office, and they're renegotiating Mike Gundy's contract. Guys, 18 straight winning seasons. top. This was the thing I wished Oklahoma State fans would have paid attention to a little bit last season. They're having a great season in Ames. Iowa State's working their way to the Big 12 championship game, and they ended up winning 10 games. It was the first 10-win season in Iowa State football history. Mike Gundy's had 6 in 18 years. I mean, OSU fans they were feeling down and out because of the season. They weren't appreciating. I get it. What have you done for me lately? But you still have to appreciate the body of work. So, and here's the sad thing too. I think Mike Gundy is appreciated in a lot of other locales, sometimes more than he is by his own school and his own fan base, which is crazy. But hey, it is what it is.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely a situation where you kind of see it shaping up to be like a be careful what you wish for type of thing, potentially. But, yeah, that is very interesting. You brought up T. Boone Pickens, and I know he's been gone now for a few years, but he was such a staple of Oklahoma State athletics in so many ways, especially even to people on the outside. They kind of knew like he was the big money guy. But because of the timing of his passing, he has not been around for this whole era of NIL and all of these things.
Yeah.
How has that affected Oklahoma State? Are they still okay in that regard because there's others that have kind of filled in, or if you can possibly fill in his contributions, or was you get where I'm coming from here? Like, did that have an effect that they're still feeling? Are they still feeling that? Yeah.
No,
Overwhelmed by your inbox? Clean Email is here to help. Organize, clean, and manage your emails with powerful automation tools. Say goodbye to spam and clutter and enjoy a stress-free inbox. Try Clean Email today at cleanemail.com. That's CLEAN email.com.
No, I get where you're coming from. They've had others. The baseball stadium was built by not an alum. I guess he is. He was in school at Oklahoma State for a couple of years. But Cecil Obrate, who he's also passed now too, built the baseball stadium, which is fantastic. Others have filled in. And in fact, I think there's a meeting coming up pretty quick with Chad Weiberg and some of the most influential alumni. There are some out there that certainly can maybe not rival T. Boone Pickens, but they're not far off. They're not far off that pedestal. So yeah, I mean, they're okay. They're going to be okay for this next year. Their NIL this season was probably was in the middle to lower middle of the Big 12, if you believe the numbers that were thrown out there. But the biggest thing, guys, and I'm kind of transitioning and I'm kind of picking spots here. Mike Gundy admitted in the middle of the season, I made a mistake. I didn't farm the portal as closely as I should have. We spent most of our money on keeping the guys that were here.
Yep. And
in some cases, those were okay. I mean, you wanted to keep Nick Martin, you wanted to keep Colin Oliver, but you didn't know one of them was going to go down in game 2 and the other in game 4 and not be back the rest of the season. You wanted to keep Alan Bowman. He had earned that, but Alan didn't have as good a year. The offensive line was all a bunch of veteran guys. I would have wanted to keep them too, but after about the first 3 or 4 games, they weren't the same for whatever reason. I don't know. So Mike Gundy realized last year, very early in the year, that he made a mistake. Now he's going to play the portal game. And he did here in the recent off season. They've got like 30 new players in this spring, and they're going to have most of the recruiting class in the summer. So by the time they get into summer workouts, they'll be close to 50 new players on this roster. You saw what Arizona State did, 45 new guys.
Yep.
45 new guys made the CFP playoff and gave Texas they should have beat Texas.
Yep.
They got screwed. They should have got the targeting call. probably could have gone down, tried their own field goal, and if they make it, they move on. So yeah, Mike. Here's what we're seeing now in Stillwater. It's a whole different program. 2 new coordinators, all new position coaches. The only constant is the what they call the roster staff, and that's the recruiting director, Kenyatta Wright, a former linebacker, is the kind of GM, and then all of those guys are the guys that go on the road, recruit, evaluate. They've really divided it up more in an NFL fashion, and it's a whole different look, whole different feel. What I can't tell you is how much better will they be next year. I mean, until I see spring ball, till I see the guys that come in the summer, because there's a couple of those guys that are not freshmen, but they're portal guys that are coming in late. I've got to see what those guys look like. I got to see what Haas Haney looks like competing with these other quarterbacks. But this is a different way of doing things. And Mike Gundy, from about the midseason point on, said, "Look, I'm going to reinvent myself and reinvent this program because we're not dealing with the same dynamics, not anymore." And so he's embraced all the newness now.
I get they had a really good team. I'm particular on the quarterback with Alan Bowman. I know they liked him as a leader, and I know that having him back for that last year was something that you maybe didn't want to pass up. But was the quarterback thing kind of the flashpoint for him going, okay, because Alan Bowman helped them win a lot of games, but he didn't actually cause them to lose a lot. His numbers weren't great, Robert, 2 years ago,
No.
And maybe that's where they should have pushed a little bit more.
You know what? I'm going to put it more on the offensive line. And I'll tell you for 2 reasons. One, Bowman didn't feel as much pressure in the 23 season because Ollie Gordon was getting past the line of scrimmage 1.5 yards or more and making a lot of yards. So there was less pressure on Bowman in the passing game. This year, Ollie couldn't get back to the line of scrimmage. He was averaging being hit 1 yard deep in the backfield. I don't know who to put that on other than the offensive line. I don't. I mean, magic pixie dust, I can't. All I can say is what I saw. Ollie Gordon went from being the Doak Walker, and he still gained 880 yards. But he gained most of those 880 on his own. He wasn't getting a lot of help, not like the year before. So I kind of go back to the fact you had a lot of 6th, 7th year offensive linemen, guys that had a lot of bumps and bruises on them. Some of them are flat out used up. You spent money on them, 6 figures on every one of them, I think, and you didn't get the return. So that's where it stops with me. Yeah, Bowman didn't have as good a season, but I didn't expect Bowman to win the games. I expected him to not lose them, and keep you in them. And that's what I think. That's where I go back to the offensive line. That's the other thing. The year before, Bowman hardly got touched. They averaged giving up a sack a game. This last year, Bowman was getting the heck beat out of it.
And it's hard. I guess you could always, it's easy to look back, but it's almost like, okay, how long can you go with the guy? He's got the experience because everybody else was young at quarterback. I have one more question for you, Robert. We always appreciate your time.
And on that topic, you remember the BYU game, they had an open week before BYU, and they did. Bowman went from 1st to 3rd team. And they went with Garrett Rangel. Rangel starts the game. Oklahoma State's going up and down the field. They're playing even with BYU. And then Rangel tears up his shoulder on a long run, got caught from behind and dragged down, and that's where he injured the shoulder. They had a choice there. They could have put Smith in, who they did later in the year. But Mike Gundy grabbed Bowman and said, even though he'd been 3rd team, the entire 2 weeks leading up to that game. He goes, I'm going to put you back in, but you have got to run the football. Because the belief at that point was the way the O-line was playing, without the threat of quarterback run, Ollie wasn't going to get anything, and the passing game was going to be in trouble. If you go back and look at it, that's how bad Alan Bowman wanted to play. That's how big a competitor he is. He ran the ball like I've never seen him run it, and the defense lost the game on the last series. Oklahoma State had the lead. BYU had to go the distance of the field in like 30 seconds, and by God, they did.
Hey, man, we'll have you again once we get into spring drills, which, of course, is changing right in front of us with games being played or not. Appreciate it. It's good to hear from you again.
That real quick, Mike Gundy hadn't had a spring game in 3 years. He's going to have a spring game, but they won't be televised, and there'll be people at the gate looking for people who are suspiciously looking like college football coaches.
Yeah, there you go. That doesn't surprise me, the day and age of where we are. Robert, thank you, buddy. Appreciate your time as always.
All right.
Thank you, Robert Allen, Oklahoma State sideline reporter.